ABEKA is a lot. I think that's something that is very commonly heard. I think when you hear about the ABEKA curriculum, a lot of people kind of shy away from it or think like, oh, it's too much, it's too book heavy, too many worksheets, too much seat work, too much busy work. But ABEKA is something that we have used in our family since the beginning of our homeschool journey. We are in our 3rd year of homeschooling and we have found a way to make ABEKA work for us. So in this video, I want to share our history with ABEKA and how we tweak it to make it work for our family. So our history with ABEKA goes way back. It goes back to when I was actually in school, in elementary school. I went to a school that used ABEKA and I used it from my kindergarten year all the way to my 8th grade year. So I was very familiar with the company, and when we started homeschooling, it was one of the first places that I went and I looked and I researched as far as would this also work for my boys. And so when we started homeschooling 3 years ago, we used ABEKA for all of our subjects for all 3 of the boys, except for handwriting. I've always used handwriting without tears for handwriting. We really enjoy that handwriting curriculum. So I never used ABEKA handwriting. From the beginning, we used handwriting without tears. But for all other subjects, the first year we did use ABEKA. Since then, our 2nd year and now our 3rd year that we are in right now, ABEKA has stayed as part of our homeschool, but it's definitely not been used for every single subject. So I wanted to share kind of how we're using it currently and how we make it work for us. So currently how we're using ABEKA is we're using it mostly for language arts. So starting especially in 4th grade, I like to use other curriculums for math, for science, for history. And if you've seen our curriculum choices, you'll notice that mostly ABEKA is used just for our language arts. The reason for that is I believe ABEKA's strength, in my opinion, is its grammar. I think the grammar and the writing, especially grammar, I think is very strong. Speaking of writing, I feel it doesn't have as much writing as I would like, which is why I kind of had decided to do a rotating schedule year to year. So 1 year we use ABEKA for grammar and also add in some writing. This year that's spectrum writing. And then the next year we'll use essentials in writing. So I'll insert a picture of that so you can see what that looks like, which is very heavy on writing and not as much on grammar. So it's kind of the opposite of ABEKA. So I feel like last year, for example, we used essentials in writing, and now this year we're using ABEKA, and then next year we'll use essentials in writing. The year after that we'll use ABEKA. And I think overall it gives the boys a really solid foundation in grammar as well as in writing and composition. Okay, so we use ABEKA as a guide. We don't use it as a script. And what that means is we use this curriculum, which is a very, I think, comprehensive curriculum. It's very comprehensive, and I think I really enjoy it because of that. But we as a parent, right, as a homeschool parent, we are able to tailor the curriculum and the day-to-day work to our child's needs. So I do not kind of allow ABEKA to kind of tell me every single thing that I have to do every single day. Instead, I use it as a guide, and then I modify it to work for my children. So some of the ways that we do that is this. So the things that we do, right? We do the complete lessons. So we follow their lessons inside the book. So I'll show you an example. This is the Language B book. So this is what my 5th grader is using. So he will do the lessons that are in the book. So he does the lessons every day. And also we do use the tests. So for language, I get this book and as well as the tests. So I'll show you that right here. So these are the tests, and then this is the test answer key, but I'll get into the teacher part in a minute. So we do use our tests and we do use the lessons. Now, what we don't do are quizzes. So if you look inside the quiz and tests, you'll notice that ABEKA has tests. So for example, this is test 2 here. So it has tests, but it also has quizzes. So for example, here's an example of a quiz. I think it's a lot. I really personally, for our family, I don't believe they need as much so much. Honestly, I feel like you're doing quizzes like every other day or tests if you follow exactly what they do. So I have decided that we do not do quizzes. We only will do tests. Now, the quizzes, I may use them as worksheets. So if I feel there's a concept that I want the boys to be able to work a little more on, we may use a quiz just as a worksheet. But that's one of the changes, or one of the ways that we adjust the curriculum, in that we do not do any of their quizzes. We only do their tests. Now for the younger grades, as I mentioned, apart from language, I will also use it, for example, history and science. So this is the history my third grader is using, which is by ABEKA. In this case, a change that I make is I only buy the textbooks. So this is all I bought. I bought no teacher materials, I bought no tests, I didn't buy anything except for this. And so what I have done is that within here, there are comprehension questions already inside each section. So I have created my own kind of tests that are not as often. So in the full year, he may have 4 or 5 tests for the whole year that I kind of created based on what he studied, and he'll take those. And then what I have done is gone online and found some free coloring pages for each of the people that are covered here. So then he's making his own timeline that kind of goes with this. So he gets to color those pages and make a timeline of history that he's studying. So that is another way that I have adjusted. So for history, there are no additional worksheets, there's no tests, there's no quizzes, just those things that I have created for him to go along with the curriculum. I've done the same thing for science. So for science, we only bought the textbook, we go through it, and then I just find free resources online or make up activities, or we make up experiments to go along and kind of make it more hands-on. So what I like to do, like I said, is use this curriculum as a guide, but then tailor it to each of my children's learning styles. So if you have a kinesthetic learner, a hands-on learner, doing every single worksheet in ABEKA is not gonna work. It's gonna be a lot. They're gonna get tired. They're not gonna connect to the concepts. So being able to read through the lesson, for example, with my son, and then do a fun, hands-on, moving activity with him is gonna help connect the information much better. But again, the content is solid. I enjoy the content of ABEKA, but I do adjust it to work for my family. Another thing I wanted to talk about is the teacher component. So I do buy the answer keys, especially for the older grades. So for example, this is what I had shared as far as my son's language for 5th grade. So I bought the answer key for the textbook, and I bought the answer key for the tests here. I did not buy the lesson plans. So I have never bought lesson plans for any of them. So I don't buy like the box curriculum. It's a little more work, maybe to piece by piece, but for me and for us, we rather just get what our children need and what we need. And so I think just having the answers is more than enough for me. And so what I like to do, instead of going with a lesson plan that's kind of like a script and tells you say this and then do this, I like to make it more hands-on and more fun and more interactive. So I'll look at what lessons are being taught, and then I'll look at who is being taught, right? My child and his learning style, and I'll come up with a way to be able to introduce the lesson in a way that will work for that child. So again, if you have a kinesthetic learner, being able to stand up and sing a song or play a game is a great way to introduce a topic. And then after we do that introduction, then they can go into their workbook and then complete the work sheets that are assigned. So that is another thing that we do. Now, if you think the lesson plans, you'd like that additional support, then my suggestion is you definitely get them. But again, have the freedom to read through the lesson plan and introduce it or paraphrase it in a way that kind of makes it your own. So you don't need to follow it step by step by step. Ultimately, as a homeschool teacher, you have the flexibility, not just for ABEKA, but for any curriculum that you use, to tailor it to your child and to your home and to your needs. So again, use the curriculum as a guide, make adjustments as needed, use it for the subjects that work for you, and not for those maybe that don't. Like I said, in our case, we're not using it for many of our other subjects for the older grades because I have found options that work better for us. So again, I'm not tied to any specific curriculum. Don't be tied to a specific curriculum. Allow that freedom to find what works best for your family. Another example is we don't use it for reading. I've never bought ABEKA's boxed reading curriculum, and I recently actually did a video talking about how we do reading in our homeschool. So again, you have the flexibility and the freedom. Never feel like you need to follow something word for word, step by step. You have that freedom. So the goal is to have your child learn, and the goal is to have them grow. And for us, one of our biggest goals is that our children have a love of learning. So it really is going to take making some adjustments. No curriculum is going to be laid out perfectly. every curriculum is going to need adjustments. So this may not work for your family. ABEKA is not for everyone, and I definitely encourage every single family to do your own research and check what works best for you. You know your child best, you know your family best, and you know what will work well. I pray this video was helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching. I pray God blesses you and your family, and I look forward to talking to you soon.